This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I have two amazing guests today. Kathy Quinlan-Perez has been a master trainer in the personal and professional development industry for over 30 years. She trains and coaches leaders from all over the world, ranging from Fortune 500 CEOs to stay-at-home moms to small business leaders. She is also the head of training and the lead facilitator of Women's Lead Seminar for Psy Seminars. As the Vice President of Psy World, she founded and runs a youth program in urban communities in the Bay Area called Camp Choice, which has been running in partnership with SFPD for 20 years. As well, she oversees school renovation and beautification projects in low-income communities all over California. In business and in life, we all want and need an amazing partner, and Gary Perez has certainly been that for 27 years. Kathy and Gary offer relationship coaching as a couple. In addition, Gary has facilitated men's leadership seminar and a 90-day leadership and goal-setting program. Wow, you guys are busy. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, we are so thrilled. I love it.
I am thrilled because you guys have had a significant impact on myself. I've gone through Psy, as has my wife. What in the world is Psy Seminars? Tell us what that world is all about. I know what it is, but I want our audience to hear what an amazing franchise or this amazing company is.
Well, I think that is the greatest question to ask. And sometimes I go, oh my gosh, people are going to think it's so cliche, but it's the truth. Like every single one of us, I believe we're put on this planet to be extraordinary, have everything that we could possibly dream of. And sometimes we get a little deflated, so to speak. And sometimes our light gets a little dimmer. And so what people really get to do in all of our classes, starting in the basic seminar, is to start to uncover what their thinking is. Like, okay, what am I thinking about that my light's getting dimmer? Like what? So we absolutely believe that we are responsible for what we are attracting or detracting, so to speak. So if that's the truth, which I believe it is, so without beating myself up about it, okay, so what thinking do I have that is keeping the light out? So you get to uncover that for yourself. And so the first 3 days in the basic seminar, it's fun, it's challenging, but you get to do the work on you. Like through these exercises, you get to look at yourself. I always tell people, like, imagine that you're lifting up a mirror and for 3 days, you're going to look in that mirror and you're going to take an inward journey to just rediscover. And I think that's a big thing that happens for people is they rediscover how great they are. And I think sometimes we forget that.
So we certainly do. And I know we talk about some hard wires and you talk about this thinking and the dimmed light. How does this happen? Because it does. It happens to all of us along the way. What is it? What do you guys uncover? How do you do that in 3 days? And I know, again, I've gone through all the courses, so I know there's more extensive courses. But in 3 days, you really unpeel the onion.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm not even going to say we unpeel the onion. I think the student unpeels the onion. Like I believe that when people are given the chance to do some work on themselves, they'll do it. So you got to remember, like this is experiential. We're not up there talking all the time. I mean, who wants to listen to somebody for 3 full days? That's not going to work. Like about 30% of the class is lecture. The other 70% of the class is experiential. So it's like you're getting back on the bike called your life and looking back in your life. I mean, think about how much we learned as a kid. In fact, I was listening to this podcast yesterday of Jane Fonda talking about her and Marilyn Monroe were in the same acting class. And Marilyn Monroe really took a liking to Jane Fonda because they saw like there was a spirit there. Because Marilyn Monroe had she did not have a lot of confidence. She definitely had a belief that she wasn't good enough. And so did Jane Fonda. It's just that Jane Fonda portrayed herself very differently. but inside they felt the same way. So they kind of saw that in each other, and they became, close. And so what Jane Fonda was talking about is that as a kid, we hear things. Somebody might have said, you're not pretty enough, you're not as smart as your brother, you're not this, or you got to do better at that. So no matter how good it wasn't good enough. And I think someplace that gets hardwired in us. And sometimes what gets hardwired is I got to beat everybody. So we're always competitive. And then we start to put other people down instead of like, wait a second, we could actually all win here. So we get to go back to like, wow, what am I saying about myself? What am I saying about other people? What am I saying about the world? And what's my, how do I even think about what relationships should look like, or how I should treat people, or how men are supposed to be, how women are supposed to be? So you get to examine things that quite possibly you never did because you just took them as fact, because that was what you learned.
Well, and I also believe that it's the unconscious conditioning, and the key word is unconscious. Because what happens is we've got all this conditioning in our childhood and our environment and so forth. It's almost, I think the best metaphor has been the iceberg. Mm-hmm. So you're conscious of 10%, the tip of the iceberg. And so 10% of your mind says, I want to create more wealth. I want to create better, deeper relationships. However, there's another 90% that we're unconscious to beneath the waterline. And our job is to drill down to that 90%, because 90% of your mind may be working against those conscious thoughts of more abundance and so forth. So I think that first 3-day course is through experiences. You don't even know what's happening, but you're actually drilling down into that 90% and going, oh, wow, I now see where I got this scarcity belief system that I could only have so much. And I think that's the great thing, is that the classes, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, and it doesn't matter what your life's experiences are, because the truth of the matter is we all have this conditioning. And the idea of those first 3 days is just to go, wow, I'm now aware of those unconscious thoughts and beliefs that now create and manifest the results that I have in my life, both good, bad, and fantastic. So I think that's one of the great things that I realized. In fact, when I went through the classes, were like, oh my God, there's so much out there that I didn't realize how much I was limiting myself, because even the limitations are unconscious.
Yeah, this is a subject I talk to parents all the time, because we as parents, we want to protect our kids. But sometimes the things we're saying are exactly what are creating that 90% of that iceberg that's going to be completely not screwed up. That's not the right terminology, but certainly could provide some self-limiting beliefs, whether that's towards money, towards relationships, towards whatever. So you guys in that first 3 days, I know some of it, because you don't want to give a lot of it away. You got to kind of be vague to a degree, but you do unpack some of these things so that people open their eyes. And then what? Then where do we go from there, you guys?
Well, I think one of the greatest things that I think actually in the basic seminar is that it's not just the awareness. Yes, you're going to get awareness, but awareness is like, have a great cup of coffee and then what, right? Is like now you get actual tools that if you really use this, because the power of our mind, visualization is one of the greatest tools that we can possibly use. Like every great golfer, every great football player, basketball player, you are seeing it in your mind. You could go on and on about that. So how do we use that? And see, I think that a lot of times we get into a rut of we want immediate gratification. So we think, okay, if I visualize this for 5 straight days, everything's going to be different. That's not how it really works. You got to see it. You got to see it in your mind, and you got to keep seeing it. So there's a saying in the basic, act as if it is so that it becomes so. And so there's tools that you can absolutely practice every single day. It's like going to the gym. If you want to change your body, you've got to work out. You got to change what you're putting in your body. And that, if you want to drop 20 pounds and you've held on to those 20 pounds for like 10 years, they're not going to come off right away. So you got to practice. You got to practice. And that's why we have our advanced classes, is because we're saying here, practice all this that you took in the basic seminar and now go here. because now you're going to take, you're practicing, and you're going to keep using your screen of the mind and your workshop, and you're going to do casework on yourself, and you're going to do casework on other people, and really, the thoughts that you put out, and assisting yourself in getting healthy, and just the connection between our body and our mind, because it's all connected. And then you go to the Life Success course, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to really break through stuff I didn't even know I needed to break through, and really experience yourself being courageous, being passionate, being loving, like getting absolutely 100% that you are significant.
I think the key in the Life Success course, the course you're talking about, is that it's transformational. So two things have to happen for transformation to take happen. One is there's got to be an emotional investment. Now that emotional investment is basically letting go of the stories and lies and conditioning that you made up as a child. So first, in those first 3 days of the first class, you're becoming aware of it, you're becoming conscious of it. Now you bring it to the work that we do in the Life Success course. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to go back in time and start letting go of that emotional attachment and start looking at the lies that you made up about yourself. Now, the second part of that is now that you've let go of it, because people do let go, they forgive. However, the second part, which is most important, now let's put in a new belief. Let's put in a new mechanism that will now serve you in moving forward to that next level. And that new mechanism is the idea that nothing is bigger than you, meaning you're going to meet your fears, your challenges. However, because of the new belief, you're willing to go through it anyway. Now, what we've all learned is that whether you fail or win when you go after something, the biggest thing that happens is you expand who you are. Because what you get out of it when you lose is education. In fact, I heard it put this way: failure is the tuition you pay for success. Now, if you win, you also learn there, because you're also seeing, okay, this is what works. So it's kind of like, what if you heard that you had to fail 50 times to get your mark, you'd be willing to do it. In fact, you'd hurry up and fail. So Psy 7, the Life Success course, is about let's go for it. 7 days, we're gonna compress, let's say 7 years of your life in those 7 days. People accomplish more in those 7 days than they do in those 7 years. 100%. Because there's an environment to go, you know what, I'm gonna risk. I'm gonna leave it all on the field. It's supportive, and you've got facilitators working there with you to go, okay, let's go one more step deeper. Let's peel that onion back some more. Let's get back down to the core of what that unconscious conditioning is. So you ask what the next step is. Well, the next step is transformation. Okay, I'm aware. Now I can do little things with my awareness, meaning I can choose consciously. However, unless I'm willing to break through the fears that are unconscious, because that's where reaction comes from, it's going to be fear-based. Unless I'm aware of that, not much is going to change that quickly.
So I have a word I'm going to throw out there, and I'm just curious.
Good. I can't wait.
Resistance.
Oh, my favorite.
You deal with this a little bit? Because I certainly gave you as much as I could. And,
Absolutely.
As a facilitator, you guys are really ninjas when it comes to pushing people in different ways. But resistance, I'll just throw that out there. What does that mean, and how do you help people overcome that?
I think resistance, nothing can happen without resistance. That's true, nothing.
And what I truly believe is resistance is absolutely necessary, because if you think about it, for a plane to lift off and fly, it has to have the resistance of the wind on its wings. So resistance is absolutely necessary. However, to be aware of it, because you don't want to stay in resistance. What resistance is now telling you, it's like an alert. The alarm's going off, you're in resistance. So what that tells you is you're not accepting what is. The sooner you accept what is, then you can start creation.
And in the whole process of what Gary is talking about in transformation, it's like, so I'm feeling resistance and we think that's a bad thing. And it's not. It's like, okay, wait a second. I'm having this resistance. So what is it that I don't want to feel right now? Like, what am I getting all pissed off about? Like, what am I reacting to right now? So that there's a meaning there. There's something going on. So it's like, I have got to acknowledge that I'm in resistance and then experience it completely. Then I can move into absolute nothingness. And when I'm standing in nothingness, I can really choose.
So you're doing this for 30 years and you're watching people fight, and some people totally embrace and they're just all in. But you're in the back of your mind, you have a pretty good idea, like, this is bullshit. Like, you're not giving it all, or you are scared out of your mind to really give it your all. I just have to imagine I don't know if it's a question or just a statement, because going through it and observing, it's just interesting what you guys get to watch this transformation. That's incredible. That is truly got to be something that just lifts you up all the time.
Oh, I feel so honored to witness what people are willing to go through.
And I think one of the things that happens when people are in resistance, we don't look at it, we don't polarize it. From our point of view, we go, okay, this is a good place to be. I look at it and go, okay, there's a lot going on here. Now, here's what we do know. The more resistance there is, the harder the turn. And so when there's that much energy going in a direction that doesn't serve them, we also know that much energy can now serve them in moving in the direction that they truly want. And so we kind of like the idea when there's a bunch of resistance, because we go, oh, this one's going to be juicy when they turn. So I think one of the things that resistance, it's just what is. It's neutral. And what we do know is when the resistance comes up, their belief systems, their unconscious conditioning is now being challenged. And it's very subtle. It's like let's say in Psy Seminar, our life success course, there's a lecture. And all of a sudden you'll see people pop up and go, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, or I need a drink of water. Well, that's their fight or flight mechanism. And then we go, oh, so let's say we're talking about wealth. We know, okay, they've got issues around wealth. Now we know what to work with. So resistance is very telling, because it's really saying, okay, here's where my conditioning is. And it supports us in identifying. It's the same thing we do with reaction. When a person is in reaction, that's where the most growth is. Because if you really look at what drives a reaction, it's usually the conditioning. It's the belief system.
But I think what's powerful about what Gary is saying, it's not that we are identifying this. The student is.
Yes.
So we set it up for them to go, okay, so when you're experiencing this, now's the time to start asking yourself, how come? What am I getting out of this? Because we don't do anything in our life, excuse me, unless we get something from it. And so that's a big question for people to really ask themselves during all of our classes is, wow, what's the price that I'm paying for being this way? Am I so invested in being right? What am I being right about?
By the way, when it comes to relationship, that's the question I ask myself all the time. So being in relationship with Kathy, I have to constantly go, would I rather be right, or would I rather have the relationship?
Sure.
So it goes back to prices and benefits. So the benefit I get out of being right with her is, okay, I get to one-up her. However, the price that I pay is my relationship. So I've got to ask myself that. Now, I don't just do that in a relationship. I do it everywhere. It's just like, what do I want to walk away with? All right, would I rather be right about something, or would I rather walk away with what I truly want?
Yeah, I always say, would you rather be right and lose or wrong and win? And I'll take wrong and win all day long, especially with my wife.
Yeah, happy wife means a happy life.
I've heard that. I have a couple more words just because they were so significant and impactful for me. Surrender, that word, because I try and explain this concept to folks, and maybe you all can do a better job, but surrendering is an idea that you have to accept some nasty stuff out there. Mm-hmm. How do you help people get to that point? Because that's a tough one.
No, I actually, as Gary was talking and I was listening to myself talking, I was thinking about all the people that are listening to this. And, Like how does that happen for people? So again, if we go back to the experiential model, so it's not with lectures. So everything you're doing something, whether that's a physical activity where you are emotionally feeling it and physically feeling it. And I think that when we go into surrender, we've moved through past our resistance and we just allow ourselves to be in the moment and experience the moment.
Fully.
100%. I don't have energy. It's supposed to be like this. It's supposed to look like this. They're supposed to be acting like this. It's like there can be complete chaos around, but you're just solid as a rock and certain within yourself. That's surrender. And I think a lot of times people view surrender as a weakness, as, oh, well, if I do that, then, they're going to one up me or, take advantage of me. But that's not what we're saying.
The connotation of the word lends itself to that, right? And when you think of surrender, I think of war, like surrendering as
throw up the white flag.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe where I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think so.
And I think most people have that concept of it. And the context in which you're talking is, so we define commitment as a choice I make and then surrender to. Okay, so if we really look at what that is, it's talking about that we create from nothing. And Kathy has brought it up several times. So I'm going to ask you a question. So what's the difference between decision and choice?
What is I choose? I make the conscious choice to do X, I guess is what I would say. A decision seems to be made for me, I guess. That would be my quick off-the-cuff definition.
Okay. So you're kind of a gearhead, right?
Well, are you talking because of all this stuff?
Well, I'm looking at the professional setup and the mixing board, and so let's take a look at the big mixing board. When you said, okay, I'm gonna purchase that, okay, so what was it about it that you said, okay, that's the one I want?
I went to an expert that is really good at podcasting, and he said, you have to get this. It's the best. That was my choice.
Okay, now.
Or the decision I made.
Okay, so now, did he ask you, like, how many mics are you running and what's the equipment you're running or how many you want to run? Or did he ask you questions like that? Or
no, because it was really just an article and a online course that I had taken.
Oh, okay. So it matched the criteria of the online course.
Correct. And for the setup that I was looking for in terms of this many mics.
Okay. So setup. So in other words, there was a lot of data that you collected to go, okay, I'm going to purchase that.
Correct.
Okay. So decision or choice?
I'm going to say, that's a good question. I made a decision is how I'm quantifying it.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. You're right. So decision is conscious, meaning our conscious mind, where we collect data. It's intellectual. So you weigh out the data, the pros and cons, budget-wise, how many mics. So you're weighing out data. All right. Now, what is your favorite color?
Green.
Why?
Green Bay Packers.
Okay. Decision or choice?
Well, again, I would say, I guess that's I don't know. You got me all. That's a choice?
Yeah. And here's what I'm going to say. It comes from a deeper place. You're drawn to it. So when we choose, we're choosing from nothingness. Meaning there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just drawn to it. So if we take it back to commitment as a choice I make and then surrender to, it's not like you weighed out the data and go, Liz meets this criteria. You were drawn to her.
So is it fair to say choice is emotion, decision is data?
Yes.
That's a simplistic way of putting it?
Okay, now let's take surrender. So if we look at the full picture here, commitment is a choice I make and then surrender to. Surrender, so it's the absence of resistance, or another way to put it is, I'm accepting what is. No illusions. Here's the reality. So for us to move forward, let's take a business deal. you've got to know the reality of it. Now, when you first hear about the business opportunity, there's illusions created like, oh, I can make this much money and so forth. However, you also know that risk management means you've got to look at the reality of it. So surrender is accepting what is in the reality of it. So I chose Kathy. I was drawn to her. I couldn't, there were no specs to meet on this one. And in that, there were parts of her that I absolutely go like, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle this for the rest of my life. However, I surrendered and accepted her as she is. In other words, I'm not going to go into this relationship going, I'm going to change her. It ain't happening. That's
never a good idea. Never a good idea.
So I want to we'll get to relationships for sure. I got to finish off at least some of the ideas, I think. So you said choice. Mm-hmm. Victim responsible. I talk about it every single darn day. And I have to, I look up on the board and I see it. And I don't want to give anything away, but you got to talk about it because this is probably the most life-altering decisions that we make daily to me.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So responsible, when we talk about it in the basic seminar, is that out of the choices I make or out of the choices I don't make, I create my life. Because sometimes we are going to make a choice or a decision and it's not going to work. So we could go victim to that, or we can say, okay, that didn't work. Get back up, brush myself off. That's being responsible. Because you're not going to be like every choice you make, every decision you make is not going to be 100% of the time is not going to work. It's not. But when we have a victim head on, like we look out, like let's say we have a set of glasses that go, oh, look what they did to me. Oh no, I need to make more money. Oh no, they did this. Or the government owes me this. Or my ex-husband owes me this. My husband owes me this. My kid should be doing that. Like all that, like zero. Like I have literally given my power to somebody else. Versus I'm not always gonna make the right successful choice. It's not gonna happen. No matter how much due diligence I do on it. It's there's gonna be failure. That's just the way it is. And as Gary said, you got to have 50 failures to hit the mark, right? So as a responsible, it's like, okay, let me be a victim. Can I just complain about this for like 5 minutes and just get done with it? And then get up and go, okay, where do I need to go from here? Like that's a whole different place. And if all the things that have happened in the world this year, I mean, come on. 2020, I see some of the craziest things on Facebook. Sometimes I can't even watch it anymore. However, is that there are some people that are thriving, being at home with their families and creating new businesses and reinventing themselves and finding different ways to present what it is that they want to present. And some people are just waiting for it to get over. Well, based on results, it's not. And so here's the moment I have. So regardless of what got thrown at us as a country, as a community, in my family, where can I take it with what I can control? I can't control everything that's on the media. I can't. The only thing I can do is turn it off, right? Or just listen to one particular channel. I can't do, I still have to work. So how can I bring the best version of me in the most challenging times? Yeah. But I think in the challenging times is when we get to rise to the occasion.
Well, this is a question. I don't know if there's a simple answer, but you deal with some folks that have dealt with the most heinous things that can happen to a human being. Mm-hmm. And you would totally understand if they chose the path of being a victim because it's awful, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not going to serve them. Mm-hmm. Is that the most basic point because again, I don't know, people being molested or some of the sexual assault crimes or some of the things mm-hmm. where they were truly a victim, mm-hmm. but you don't, as a coach, you're helping them not sit in that role and mm-hmm. to choose to take responsibility for their life. So is that a great way to define that? Because this is where
it is a great way to define it. However, when I I'm not going to be responsible for what someone did to me when I was 4 or 5 years old. That's not happening because I'm a child. I have no responsibility in that. Like they are evil, sick people. But how I view myself from this point forward, that's now my responsibility. And there's a lot of scientific research, but we don't go into any of it in what we do in our classes. But there's a lot of trauma that might not even have happened to us specifically, but it could have happened to my mother or my grandmother, and it's in my DNA. And so as people start to do experiential work, they start to untangle that. And so that is the important part. And sometimes, when there's all that trauma, sometimes we do say, you know what? I have some place for you to go. This might be a great other class for you to do, or go see this person because they will specifically work with that.
Got it.
Because sometimes that's true. Like there is horrible things that happen, so, I am a proponent of, here, you can beat that chair for an hour if you need to. And if you want to beat that chair and pretend like it's that person, go right ahead.
Yeah, it's always an interesting subject as when I talk about this with folks, and I try and explain it in the way that I understand it. So you talked about the next possible course or direction, and you obviously women's leadership seminar would be different than men's leadership seminar. And again, you both facilitate and do that. What is that, as much as you can give us? Because I think it's really unique. Mm-hmm. It was an amazing experience. And again, this isn't just all about, but this is the work you guys do. You put your heart and souls into.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so if I was going to very simply say, okay, so of everything you're thinking and feeling, and okay, now I got some tools and I can use these tools, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to break through and experience myself, trusting myself, being courageous, being certain, and absolutely knowing that I make a difference. I have a significant life. And now what the leadership seminars are all about, we're not going to, you already let go of stuff. Will that stuff continue to come up for you at times? Yes, it will. But in the leadership seminars, it's not about that. It's about your relationship with yourself as a man or a woman, and how you view other women and how you view other men. Because one of the things I always talk about in WLS, in the women's class, is that I think that as women, we've done more damage to each other than I'll ever, this is just my viewpoint, that, it's about us. And are we really supporting one another in making it to the top of the mountain with other women? Or are we backbiting? Because, that's been kind of our MO as women from gosh knows how long. And to learn how to really value all of us, and to create a balance in our life. So how can I go and be a powerful CEO or, badass, kick-ass at work, and then come home and nurture my little kids and be in relationship with my husband, so that I'm not that person, that sometimes I have to be that person at work, but I can't be that person at home. It just doesn't work. I'll tell you this is a funny story that's kind of perfect. Is so I've been at a couple of classes for a while. So I've been gone for about, 2 weeks. And so I'm thinking about all the way home going, okay, I left this list for Gary to do, and he's got to get done with all this stuff, right? And so I'm just thinking, okay, I'm going to find out. I can't wait. He's supposed to get all this stuff done around the house. I walk in and I immediately start asking him if he got the list done.
Wait. Hold on a second. I already knew she was on her way home. Now, my side of the story is she's been gone for 2 weeks. All I can think about is I can't wait to see my honey, right? It's like, oh my God, she's going to be home. We can go out to dinner. We can go out on a date. I get to be with her. So I'm in this place of, oh my God, I can't wait to see her. And so I knew I heard her pull up into the driveway. I hear her walking up the walkway, and I'm so excited to see her. And there's the knock on the door. I open the door, and it's her. First words out of her mouth is, did you get this done? Did you get that done? Did you get... I look at her and I basically shut the door in her face and I said, when you find my wife, I'll let her in the house.
So I of course, got mad and I got into my car and I drove around and I'm just like, what the? He was supposed to get that stuff done. And I call my friend. I'm doing the victim thing for a little minute. And then she's like, Kathy, he wanted to have his wife back. Oh, right. So I pull back up. I walk in the house. I go, hi, honey, how are you?
I love to hear the human side because you guys are human too. That's what's great, right? Not always the easiest thing to always follow through on. All right, tell me a little bit about MLS as well, Gary, because I know that's a big part of what you do too.
Well, I think I think the two classes are women's leadership and men's. I think they're very, very similar. However, it's got to be done in a way that men can hear it and women can hear it. So the biggest thing for me the discoveries that I made as I went through this class was that they use in the definition statement. Kathy, what's the definition statement for LS?
To create leaders empowered by their wholeness as men and women committed to living their vision by actively contributing to the world.
So I heard that and I go, great copy. Don't have a clue what it means. Now, in the class, what I discovered, what was key for me was wholeness. And the wholeness thing was that I have a shadow that I hide. Parts of me that I just didn't like. Now, I worked on some of that in the previous class. However, I didn't realize how it affected me and how I show up in the world. Now, most importantly, in terms of leadership of self. Meaning, I don't need anybody to validate, here's the direction I'm going, here's where I'm, the decisions or choices I make. And so that was a big deal to me. And I think when I look at that class, it was about wholeness. My male side, my masculine side, and my feminine side. It's kind of like growing up, I grew up with a very macho father. So what I didn't understand was I was only bringing a piece of me to the party versus all of who I am. Now, what I realized is as I went through this work and started to get into more of men's leadership, bringing all of me to show up for whatever it was, business, relationships, it was absolutely necessary if I'm going to move forward in my life. And so that was the big part, was like, okay, there are parts of me that I keep hiding. And so now it's time to bring it all, to be that authentic man, to be real. If I wanted a committed relationship, I've got to show up real and be authentic. If I want a good business relationship, and you know this in business, you'll definitely work with the guy that shows up real and authentic, and it's a man that you can trust or a woman that you can trust. And you'll go, you know what, I'll do business with you. However, the person that hides parts of themselves, it's like, okay, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's really happening here? So that was a big lesson. Now, part of it is also alignment within ourselves. That's when we're most effective, meaning the head and the heart are in alignment, and then magic occurs when that. It's kind of like in sports, they call it the zone. In religion, they call it allowing spirit in or inspiration. And that's when we create majestic and magical events in our lives. So that was all a part of my MLS, was seeing that I'm more than just what I thought I was, and owning that and accepting that. And that we really worked on surrender in there, in that class. I think men's leadership is about, once we get to accept who we fully are in our greatness, now what am I going to contribute to the world? How big a game do I want to play? So leadership of self first, and then playing the game of, okay, let's play a bigger game, and then whoever wants to jump on board, being that leader.
Yeah, and you guys have both experienced, and I'm not talking monetary, I'm talking just successful human beings. And your list has got to be your list has got to be incredible. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you guys about some of the relationship coaching. I know you're passionate about it, 27 years. You guys have this really cool spirit about your relationship where you're very honest with one another about, well, she was driving me crazy and like I went for a drive. So talk to me about maybe the top 3 things you think people could really be doing to make their relationship better, or, just more about what y'all are doing.
I think that I think the biggest thing is that you always have to remember why you fell in love with them in the first place. And to always keep that in the forefront, especially when you've been, together for a while. They're going to do things, or, things get a little crazy. And, wait a second, I didn't buy in on that, but you did. And so what was it that you saw that was great about them? I think that so often we look at what's wrong versus what's right. And to treat that, like, what do they need? Not what you think they should have. What do they need? And to actually have that open communication. I think that's the biggest thing.
As you go through the seasons, because 27 years, there's arguably 2-3 seasons, I don't know how many in there, you're going to grow, you're going to change. How do you suggest, is it the communication piece? Is that what it is? Is it literally, I fell in love with you, therefore I accept? I'm curious. That's a question for you both, because I think that's where I see a lot of relationships fail. They're not willing to accept how this person has evolved and changed.
So I think the biggest thing for me with Gary is I had to take all my expectation of what I thought he was going to be to how he is. And that his greatest gift in our marriage is that he has 100% supported me. Like anything and I have come up with some crazy ideas. And he's like, oh God, okay, let's do it. And he does it. And then he like shines. I mean, when we started Camp Choice, he was like, oh my God, what have you gotten me into? And then, like after the first summer of Camp Choice, and I fell in love with these like 6 boys, and they are like the baddest boys, bad, which I loved. And so, I go up to everybody's crying. They don't want to go home. At first they didn't want to be there, but blah, blah. And so I'm like, hey, guys, I live by you. Do you guys want to go to the movies? And I see Gary over there, and he's just like sitting there going, she didn't do what I think she just did she? And I go, honey, guess what? We're going to pick him up next week and take him to the movies. He goes, oh dear God, are you kidding me? And then, but he, he had a little resistance to it, but he moved through his resistance and fell in love with them. And so that's what and those are the things that I can't put a price tag on.
And I think the key for me has always been going back to what I said about commitment. I'm accepting what is. When we took our vows, I accepted, here's what is. Regardless of how she shows up, I'm committed to her for the rest of my life. And so for me, that surrender is important, meaning I'm not going to change her. I'm accepting her exactly how she is. I remember when she once said to me, she goes, you know what? I want to go to Paris. And I was just like, I'm not too happy about that one. So you go ahead and go with your girlfriend and your sister and so forth, right? However, I had a Harley at the time, and I would rather go with the boys and ride my Harley down to Vegas from San Francisco. I mean, it was a blast. And so anyway, the point is I absolutely support her in all the things that she wants to create. So why not? I look at her as my queen. I've got to treat her like a queen, so she'll treat me like a king. And so, of course, if that's my queen and the woman of my love that I love dearly, why wouldn't I support her in whatever she wanted out of life? And then she did the same for me. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to have anything to do with my Harley. However, she supported me in that trip to Vegas. And then we came together. I took up the game of golf because she loves golf. And we came together and created a golf vacation and went to Cancun. So it's kind of like how we do our lives. It's like I accept her for where she is, where she wants to go, and absolutely support it. And she supports me. And then we come together and build our lives together.
But as you're talking, I think the biggest thing is I trust Gary. So if he tells me he's going to go someplace, like he's going with his buddies that he's known, and they're kind of crazy. And he's going to Vegas with them. I totally trust him. I would never in a million years question what he's doing. Just wouldn't even cross my mind. And I think that's a big deal.
That for sure. Obviously pure trust. And I I got to ask about Camp Choice. I mean, obviously you lit up even talking about these 6 boys and just this idea. It's pretty remarkable what you guys do. Tell the audience what that's all about.
So I read an article in the San Francisco Chronicle of what these a group of police officers in San Francisco that were with specifically the housing division, and they realized that in these certain projects wasn't going so good, and they would notice that at 8 years old, like kids would just run away from them, and they're like, God, we gotta change things. So they really did a concerted effort to doing like a community relations thing. Now, obviously in the last 27 years, that's changed a lot. But back then, like the greatest people I've ever met. And when I called them and I said, hey, here's what I do as a living. I think that there's something that I could do for you. And so I went up and I met them in their offices on Bryant Street, and I'm sure they just looked at me as like some white chick from Hillsborough, and I'm listening to them, and they're just really good guys. And there was one woman, and there's like these 4 guys, and it's a long but really cool story of how they all started. So we started to, they got the kids, I raised the money, and we brought the kids together, and we started bringing them up to this ranch. And it's just evolved over the last 27 years. And there was a young woman by the name of Danielle Moore who came, her sister came the first year. She came the second year. And she just became like a prodigy, just like she listened. She listened. She came every year and she just started growing. She went to the basics. She came to Life Success course. She went to leadership seminar, and she really took on the work and start like amazing, impressive. So many great stories with her family. Fell in love with those boys, and so many great stories. But she's really the person that we've been mentoring to take it all over. She is great with the kids.
Now, Danielle, to give you a perspective, where she lived, the cops had nicknamed the kill zone.
Wow.
Because there were so many homicides. And I remember we went to visit her, we went to her neighborhood and stuff, and I was just like, okay, this is pretty rough and tough area. And, when I realized how great she was and not knowing where she lived and so forth, and then seeing where the environment that she lived in, I was really impressed, because what it told me is how creative and willing to be open to do amazing things. Now, was she a little raw and rough around the edges? Absolutely. And that's one thing that we loved about her. And she was always willing to look and go, okay, what more can I do? How much better can I be? And so we watched her transform over the years to this amazing woman. And so,
I mean, she's married, and her wife own Brush Salon in Healdsburg. They bought a home in Las Vegas, so they live in Healdsburg and Las Vegas. I mean, like, we're talking night and day, and just incredible, incredible woman. But I remember one time that we got these boxes at Christmas time. And so we were like, what are these, right? And we opened it up, and she had sent me a Michael Kors bag, and Gary like 5 of your favorite T-shirts from Nordstrom, and this beautiful letter. And I'm just like, wow, these aren't cheap. This is incredible. Like, she was doing really well for herself. And that's she's really has worked on her wealth consciousness. Like, she talk about someone that took on transformation.
Yeah. I mean, I love those stories. And what's amazing, like I said, your Rolodex is going through my head of all the stories you've done that with.
Oh.
So we're coming up on the end here. What should I have asked you that I didn't know enough to ask? What do you want to leave the audience with?
Wow. What should you have asked? I think you asked some really great questions, but I think that the most important thing that I would want to say to the audience is that life is a journey and it's not a destination. And that keep working on you. and looking out at how can I contribute? How can I be the best version of me to give to my family, to give to my friends, to give to the community? And, look us up, come to our classes. If you need some coaching, give us a buzz.
I ditto that, and I also believe that the best investment you can make is within yourself. And we've heard it from all the greats, Buffett and so forth. However, I think when we make an investment, we want to make sure that we're winning. And the best way we can win is not to be victim to all the circumstances and environment. So the best investment you can make is within yourself. And that's when you really realize the returns. And so what I realized when I started taking these classes, wait a minute, it's not just a class, it's a lifestyle. And I'm sure you know this, the more you learn, the more you expand who you are, the greater that, let me put it this way, the bigger the box, more will fit in it. And so our job is to go, okay, how much bigger can I grow? What do I need to do in my life to constantly learn and grow? So we've been on this path of just like sponges and looking for all the new technologies that are out there in terms of mindset, and so forth. So it's been so rewarding in terms of wealth, and I'm not just talking financial. It's just I can't say enough words about the life that I get to live as a result of even starting to do this work. And I started taking these classes in 1989.
Wow. Well, you guys, you do offer so much. How can people connect with you online?
Online, go to PSIBasicSeminar.com.
Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes. Personally, just thank you guys for pouring so much into those students, me being one of those at that time, continuing to do the work, keeping the relationships, just so much of what you guys do. I hope you understand how much impact you have on people, but if you don't, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you,
This has been an honor. Absolute honor. Great.
All right, you guys, until next time, continue to transcend in life and go to Let's Go Win. Check out the work-life balance assessment. It's free to you. Download it. It is I take it once a month just to check in. I loved today's episode. I hope you share it with everybody. Have an awesome time. Till next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendinlifepodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.